But big news. I was just gonna do fucking gaming, and then all of a sudden, of course, in my feed, in my fucking news feed on YouTube, I had to see that apparently the U.S. is stopping a shipment of aid of bombs to Israel, which is the most fucking shocking thing that could happen. Like, that is the most. When I woke up this morning, if you said to me that the U.S. is going to stop a shipment of bombs to a genocidal country, I would have died of a heart attack, straight up. Like, there's no fucking other reaction I would have had. But it's a thing. I don't know why fully myself yet, but let's jump into it, I guess. If I can remember the hotkey to switch to Firefox. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's see, live stream is F1. Yeah, there we go. There we go. It's already pulled up. It's not quite centered, though. Fuck it. I'm not even quite centered. Mentally or in the camera frame. To be fair. All right.
Washington has hit pause on, quote, one shipment of high payloads munitions to Israel. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin confirming that proverbial shot across the bow in testimony before the U.S. Senate.
So we've been very clear, Senator, as you know, from the very beginning that
like, okay, here's my thing with this. The way he said, is it just one shipment that they're stopping, or is it like an entire, like, is it one ship of bombs that they're like, we're not going to send you this one ship of bombs, or is it like, yeah, no, we're stopping like whatever the entire current convoy of shipments of bombs, like, because that really kind of matters, because what that means is, like, is this a saving face thing, or is this a genuine change in stance? And also, what are Biden's thoughts on this? Because this completely runs against what Biden has been saying, because he's had, like, no red lines for Israel this whole damn time. Anyway.
Israel
Let's
should
see.
launch a major attack in Rafah without accounting for and protecting the civilians that are...
Maybe he fucking mentions it. Maybe at some point in this speech he's like, Biden completely disagrees with this, but...
in that battle space. And again, as we have assessed the situation, we paused one shipment of high payload munitions. And again...
One shipment? What does one shipment mean?
I think we've also been very clear about the steps that we'd like to see Israel take to account for and take care of those civilians before major combat takes place. We certainly would like to see no major...
Okay, they haven't been doing that this entire time, though. So it's like, it still, makes, there's no... Like, it's stupid. It's stupid to, like, just be like, Israel, like, yeah, it's suddenly listen to us. It's not, like, they are a rabid attack dog of the U.S. state. Like, there's no other way to put it. Like, we see fascism and we support it. Like, that's pretty much the American policy. 70% of fucking dictatorships we support. Like, like, it's insane.
Your combat take place in Rafah, but
it's ridiculous to think that they're suddenly gonna stop when we have not been giving red lines and we support dictatorships all the fucking time. Like, what about that is gonna motivate them to stop? we've been giving them the bombs to genocide Rafah for like literally the last 10 years plus.
Our focus is on making sure that we protect the civilians. And we've not made a final determination on how to proceed with that shipment.
And for more, we're joined from Washington by Frank Lowenstein, Executive Director of ABCO, former U.S. Special Envoy for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations in the Obama administration. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And from Jerusalem, correspondent Iris Mockler. Iris, that...
Side note, we'll see how this goes, because France 24, they go like one of two ways. It's either they do really good coverage, or they're gonna be kind of like massaging Israel here.
The statement we just heard from Lloyd Austin, I imagine it's making waves where you are.
It is making waves because I guess this administration is taking the gloves off. It's not speaking, as we heard earlier in the day, via a diplomatic...
You're fucking telling me, Jesus fucking Christ. Fucking sudden ass change in fucking opinion. Like, what the... like, what?
Official, someone unnamed. We heard John Kirby, the Pentagon spokesperson, saying, no, we don't discuss arms shipments, and certainly not one arms shipment. Later in the day, we heard from an Israeli Defense Force spokesperson, Daniel Hagari, who also talked up the great relationship, the unprecedented cooperation. And now we hear from Lloyd Austin in his, himself speaking clearly and saying, yes, the US has paused it's not even aid, military aid to Israel until what's happening in Rafah is clear. And I think Washington is making it clear to Israel. In a way, it did previously with words. All along, there's been this exchange between Washington and Jerusalem, reported in the American newspapers, reported here, where discussions were leading to the point of Israel saying we're ready to go in, and Washington saying you haven't...
Yeah, they were ready to fucking nuke Gaza. Literally.
taken enough steps to protect civilians. And so now it's an action behind those...
And now we're having a sudden change in opinion from the fucking secretary. Like, what? I don't... Where did this come from? Where... Like, the past few days I've been saying, what planet are we on? And now I'm, like, almost for a good reason being like, what planet are we fucking on? Like, one day it's like, yes, Israel can do a genocide no matter what, no red lines. And then the next day the fucking US Defense Secretary is out here going, we are stopping shipment of bombs to Israel. What? Like, fucking who? What? Fucking did the communists come and inject him? Like,
words. Israel hasn't taken enough steps to protect Palestinian civilians in the American point of view, or from the American position, and America wants that done before there's any, as they put it, major operation in Rafah. What we've seen so far in Rafah.
Because 24 hours ago, Israel was stating...
Which they are invading Rafah. I mean, even if they're not doing a fucking ground invasion, they're still fucking killing civilians, like, across the board. As they have been, like, this entire war since October 7th. And, mind you, since before October 7th. Which is always important to keep in mind when it comes to this fucking issue.
That this 1 battalion of tanks that had gone to shut the Rafah crossing with Egypt was a limited incursion.
That's right, and it is a
limited incursion. That's fucking ridiculous. There's no such thing as a limited military incursion. And also, in the extent that Israel means it, no. Even less so.
We're not seeing the kind of fighting we saw in Khan Yunis. We're not yet.
Because they are an ethno-state that has been doing a genocide for over 60 years now. Even if it's a slow burn genocide, a lit candle is still a lit candle. You know, it doesn't change what it is just because, you know, it's being conducted in a more clandestine way where we haven't been considering it. You know, they literally internally refer to every incursion into Gaza as mowing the lawn. Like, they do not see Palestinians as people. They see them as someone that they can genocide for land whenever they need it. Like, it's pretty fucking disgusting what the views of the ethno-fascist state are.
Yet, seeing the kind of military, we're not seeing troops.
Which also, mind you, those views don't reflect the views of many fucking protesters, even, you know, Israeli and Jewish protesters protesting against things. Who actually don't support the efforts of the state to conduct a genocide.
Inside Rafah proper, we're seeing Israeli troops at the border posts, theatrical, you know, all filmed, going in, shutting the border crossing, but not anything more than that. And I guess what Washington is saying is that's where we'd like to see it end. Thank you very much.
Frank Lowenstein, the Biden administration dialing up the heat over the last 20.
Are they, though? Is the Biden administration dialing up the heat? Because I don't think this was Biden. Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was. You know, maybe Biden did agree to this, but no, I can't see Biden doing this. He's been a fucking, like, strong supporter of Israel his whole political career. Like, this is a move that he does not make.
24 hours. Why did Lloyd Austin go public with all this?
Well, I think what you're seeing is real frustration from the Biden administration with the Israelis that's now spilling over into the public. I think in general, what we'd most like to do is resolve these kind of disagreements with the Israelis privately. But when they make clear that they intend to do exactly what we do not want them to do over our objections, at that point, we're forced to make a bigger public story out of it. And also to threaten to take action, as your correspondent just suggested.
Kind of fine, though,
I don't
because it
think
has
the
me
Israelis
looking at
care
the
what we
screen.
say at all anymore. The only thing that they'll respond to is our actions. So this is the first step towards making clear to the Israelis that we're serious about this.
Yeah, it is the first step. Why wasn't it taken sooner?
Oh, I don't think it's coming far too late, personally.
Yeah, there we
I also
go.
think it's important to understand the overall.
See, this is what I mean. France 24, sometimes they have good coverage. Like, literally right there, that shows it. Like, I literally started saying some shit, and they instantly were like, yes, we're on the same fucking page journalistically here.
Context here, which is the United States is pushing very hard for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, and I think it's the position of our government.
Yes, ceasefire now.
Pretty far in terms of what we think should be acceptable to the Israelis. So we're trying to exert some leverage here, not only on to get Israel not to go on Rafah, but also to get them to agree to a ceasefire agreement that the United States feels very strongly about, and also that reflects President Biden's political considerations here at home.
I do be always forgetting about that shit.
Testify to is there's a lot of discontent in the United States. We've seen it in campus protests and whatnot, but I think President Biden is reacting to that as well.
So explain this to me, Frank Lowenstein, because we know Joe Biden's been around the block. He's been in Washington for more than half a century. He was right? Remember the time he was in Israel. When
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, Biden's entire career, he is not... This is not a move he makes, okay? Biden, from the start of his career, has always been pro-Israel. And, like, I mean, I don't have the fucking Hasanabi complex fucking in my chat here to fucking insta pull up clips, but, like, there's so many clips of Biden, like, in or his early career, late career, being like, I support Israel no matter what. Like, they could literally do anything, and it'd be fun. Like the inverse of, like, Trump shit, where, you know, how he was like, I could shoot someone on fucking in New York in Times Square and no one would fucking give a shit. Like, that's Biden's version of that, but that's for Israel. He's like, Israel can do anything and Biden will support it.
As vice president, while he's in town, Israel announces they're building new settlements. So he knows about the way Benjamin Netanyahu operates.
Yeah.
Why has he been so cautious?
You know, I think he really has a deep and abiding personal affection for Israel and desire to be seen historically as having.
And see, that's another thing. When it comes to things like the settlements and shit, Biden is not, he's not against Israel doing that shit. Like, not, like, objectively. I mean, maybe he's subjectively, like, opposed to, like, you know, any backlash that comes from it. But, I gotta mute real quick. Alright, I am back, but also my camera is apparently fucked up, so that was the perfect time to, like, have a moment where I needed to be like, aha, and then fucking end up noticing my camera's fucked. One moment while I fix that, and also fix the fact that it is very not correct on the screen. Things are not aligned. And that will bug me. I don't know how it's not aligned either, because I did a fuck ton of, like, pre-stream preparation bullshit. Including making sure shit was where it should be, and yet it's not. Alright. There we go. Is that fixed? No, I just need to fix the camera. Which hopefully I can just activate, deactivate. There we go. Alright. Let's hop on back into this.
Having really stood by Israel at their time of greatest need. That was important to him when we were working with him during the Obama administration, President Biden, even then, when he was vice president,
Yeah.
was adamant that we stand by Israel almost no
Yes.
matter what. So I think this is a
That's what I'm saying too. Like, this is something that he's been clear about, that it's like he has no red lines for Israel. So the fact that the US fucking defense secretary just came out and was like, yes, we are actually stopping aid to Israel in the form of bombs, that's insane. There's no way he ran that past Biden without Biden being like, no, Jack, no.
of deep personal conviction for him. That being said, I think the Israelis have finally pushed him far enough where he's willing to take harder action
No.
than he's really comfortable taking.
But
And that's because
And
I disagree. See, I disagree there. I don't think that's the case. I think this is going over Biden's head here.
knows who Benjamin Netanyahu.
Like, my thought is maybe they announced it to force his hand. Conspiracy theory, but
is.
Yeah, he does. And he keeps saying, including yesterday, that he'll always defend Israel's security, even when he disagrees with Prime Minister Netanyahu. So I think the only reason why Biden has done this is because the word has leaked out now that Netanyahu wanted to do a full Rafah invasion over the weekend. In other words, he was prepared to completely defy us, both on the ceasefire and on the Rafah invasion. And I think that really got President Biden's attention. He said, Bibi's going to ignore us. You know, even though I love Israel and I've had a long
maybe
with him, that's a step too
like,
far. So I think that's where you see him doing something that he's otherwise very.
There's a small chance.
I would also add that Secretary.
There's a small chance that, like, this actually is Biden's, like. Excuse me, I had to burp. But there's a small chance that this is fucking, you know, Biden's intent here, and it's not going over his head, and that, you know, he really was just, you know, pushed to this. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, maybe. Because I was thinking about it, it could be like, thinking about the chess game he could be playing here politically. You know, he just came out, like, against the protesters, weirdly, which is, you know, terrible, but also kind of like, you know, throwing some breadcrumbs to, like, you know, like, that crowd, like, I don't know how to put it, but I don't know. Maybe he's, like, got, like, a chess game going on here, and, you know, he's done one thing, and to now be able to, you know, say, hey, no, I support Israel, but I don't support Israel's actions. Like, maybe, I don't know. I don't think so, though. Because, again, he's never had a red line for Israel his entire life.
Today that Israel is complying with international humanitarian law, which is a requirement of all countries that receive U.S. weapons. We delayed.
And he does not seem to be keen to the fact that it is indeed a genocide, which would be like the only real thing that would, like, you know, make someone like snap on some shit like that. You know, is like self-reflective type shit.
That certification today. I think Secretary Blinken.
Like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't be fucking supporting a fucking genocide. Maybe that is terrible, and maybe people are right when they're calling me fucking Genocide Joe.
Saying now they'll do it sometime in the next couple of days, but that's also another indication to the Israelis that we're prepared to back up our.
Which is a fucking ridiculous thing. Like, that really bugs me. He fucking, like, the entirety of his campaign right now is pretty much, I'm not the other guy. Meanwhile, he is the other guy. Like, he's just another flavor of the other guy. Like, it's insane. It's insane. Because, like, you can't be running on I'm not the fascist while suppressing and oppressing protesters and being for that, and also at the same time literally supporting a genocide. Like, that's wild to me. Like, that he thinks that, or that anyone in his team thinks that that's gonna fly. Like, that's fucking ridiculous. Like, anyone and everyone is gonna pick up on that. That's insane. Like, it's the dumbest shit. But that's just the typical Democratic shit that we fucking deal with every day of our lives. Free.
Words with actions if they don't change course.
A delayed certification, one shipment delayed. Is this enough to basically change the course?
Yeah, here's what I'm intrigued by. How, like, how many bombs, like, what is the impact on Israel's war effort here? You know, how much less are we giving them because of the ceasement of this current shipment? And how much of a shipment is it? Was it just like a small re-up? Like, that matters. Because, again, like I also said earlier, this also could just be like a saving face move from the state to just do something or allow some move that, you know, makes it look like they're putting pressure on Israel. Meanwhile, it's like, oh, we're not sending a single ship. And, you know, they've already received, like, you know, 78 others, though, you know?
Probably not. But we'll see how far the Israelis want to push it. I think hopefully what they'll do is realize that they have to listen to us if they want to continue to receive our weapons. If they don't, I think we really could be heading for a big showdown with them where we're cutting off weapons, you know, much more broadly than the one shipment we've stopped so far, and otherwise not protecting Israel
Yeah,
at the UN.
so it's just
So
one
other things
shipment.
we can do to put additional pressure on them. So I know everybody's
That's not going to do anything. Okay, that's not going to do anything even pressure-wise, because what that just means, we're pretty much pre-announcing that it's only going to be one shipment that we're not sending. So it is, like I said, it is meaningless, actually. It's just a completely meaningless move to save face. There we go. Alright. Well, we figured it out. We got to the bottom of it.
The next 24 to 48 hours.
There can never be no good news without there being, like, a negative silver lining. Not in America. Not with our country.
And so I think all of this is in furtherance of that, for now anyway.
So the gaze then
I need more
turns
damn
back
coffee.
to Cairo, where there are ceasefire negotiations going on. Frank Lowenstein, Iris Makler. Earlier, we spoke with an Israeli, it was France 24's Delano D'Souza spoke with a spokesperson for the Israeli government about those ceasefire negotiations. Let's take a listen.
My Prime Minister has been quite clear. We will not agree to an agreement that says that there has to be a permanent ceasefire, which would leave Hamas in power, which would enable Hamas to take over the Gaza Strip, and ultimately would enable Hamas to do what they want to do, which is October 7th again and again and again.
I can't. What the fuck? It is so obnoxious, that narrative. Because here's the thing. when it comes to October 7th, I'm gonna be careful here. Lest I have my own Hassan 9/11 moment. But, uh, but here's the thing. No, fuck it. In short, yeah, America deserved 9/11 and Israel deserved October 7th. As a direct result of policies of interfering with other countries in ways that devastates the local populace and, leaves and like eternal distaste for the even mere mention of the state that has like imposed such tragedies upon the peoples. In short, in short. But yeah. So basically every time, what I'm getting at is every time they say, October 7th, that's like when we go, that'd be like if we were going, 9/11 happened, so we get to bomb all of the Middle East and shit, because, it was Arabs that did it and they were Muslim. No, that's racist. It's racist. It's racist and it's reactionary and it's stupid and it really doesn't justify anything. One wrong does not justify another wrong. One wrong justifies one righting a wrong.
What we will do is what we've done in the past. We will keep up the military pressure. We will explore all the
I gotta let the dog in, hang on.
military, military and diplomatic options available to us, and we will do our utmost to bring home the hostages. We have.
Israel's totally considering diplomatic solutions. Totally. It's not like Israel have been the ones that have shot down fucking negotiations every time, including the most recent ones where Hamas agreed to it. Like Hamas, like even after Israel was like, no, we disagree. We don't agree to it. Hamas was like, yes, we agree to it though. We're gonna adhere. Israel's like, no, no, no. So this dipshit saying this, complete lying through his teeth. Like, it's the same shit as with our officials where, actually, yes, it is. Prime example, the fucking last official who was like, oh, we're totally cutting aid off to make a message here as a diplomatic move because we're totally considering our diplomatic options. Is like, no, it's just saving face and then continuing the current policy.
Our team in Cairo now trying to make a deal, and at the same time,
but this is a low-level team, from what I understand from media reports. So can they really take decisions, or do they need to come back and get the blessing of the war cabinet?
This is a team that was sent by our prime minister with the explicit instruction to do what they could do to bring home the hostages. Now, Hamas needs to come to the table and negotiate in good faith.
I'm noticing there's a little bit of background noise.
Because enough
Pardon
is enough.
that.
They're holding 132
I'll have to
Israeli
tweak that for the future.
Their will, men, women,
Apparently
children,
I need to fix up my noise gate.
A crime against humanity.
I live in a
Because
fucking
your
tiny
response,
ass
still
fucking
sounds
house.
like it's a listening tour.
Yeah, I can only
on
do
the
so
part of that
much.
mid-level-
I can
that's
only
what's
do so
described,
much.
this mid-level Israeli delegation that's in Cairo.
So we understand, because when it wasn't a listening tour, they sent the head of the Mossad, and he had more authority. I think everybody goes back to the war cabinet if they want to get something finally agreed. But if you're sending people who have some leeway, some independence, and some ability to horse trade, I mean, that's what a negotiation is. And what it's understood that the remit for this group of negotiators or this team,
I like just was like, I'm sorry for the background noise.
Hamas,
And
the version of things.
you like march over here coughing. Yeah, exactly. You try to make it foreground noise.
That Hamas has agreed to, and what Israel proposed, what is it now, 2 weeks ago now, something like that. I do think it's important to say that all of these intervening days, there has not been an Israeli delegation in Cairo. So it was Egypt, and it was Qatar, and it was the United States finessing, negotiating.
Notice how Israel doesn't even want to be present in any negotiations here. Pretty key thing to notice, right? Pretty much kind of, dismantles their whole, well, we're totally looking for diplomatic solutions bullshit. Kind of really exposes that line as, bullshit.
Because an Israeli team wasn't there. Now Israel has sent a team which doesn't have full powers to negotiate. And I think that sends its own message as well.
Now, that clip we just heard was from before Lloyd Austin speaking. Are we still expecting to hear a maximalist message from the Netanyahu government? And you talked about the war cabinet. The war cabinet, for our viewers, that also means that it's in coalition with more moderate elements. Is the messaging about to change out of Israel?
That's the question that everyone's asking. There are many people within Israel who are not in the war cabinet, but who were either hostages themselves or who have relatives who are hostages inside Gaza at the moment, and they are crying out for a deal, saying, as we've discussed before, that an operation in Rafah can wait, but the hostages cannot wait. So there's an enormous amount of pressure.
Yeah, and they especially can't wait because Israel keeps bombing the hostages. Like, if Israel really took the whole hostage situation seriously, they wouldn't be bombing the hostages. Like, this is like watching cops be like this is apt comparison. Okay, this is like Uvalde. Like, the cops go in and everyone's like, no, they totally actually care about protecting people. Meanwhile, there's like hundreds of cops like sitting on their asses, except it's a little different because, it's like if you had hundreds of cops like destroying civilian homes, shooting at civilians as well. But anyway, point is, there's a slight comparison there. Forget where I was going with it, but there was at one point in my brain.
From that side, from ordinary people, I've just seen a poll which suggests that something like 50% of Israelis believe the hostage deal must be done now, and those numbers rise depending on different subgroups within the population. So there's a huge pressure from within the population on Benjamin Netanyahu, and then there's the right-wing parts of his government.
I need coffee. I'm looking at all that water and that Diet Coke or whatever the fuck, and I'm like, I need my caffeine. I only had a sip left before I started streaming, and I didn't realize. So now I'm just locked in until I can take a break when this is done.
Who don't want a hostage deal and who do want a maximalist operation within Rafah. And the question is, what will Benjamin Netanyahu do? Which side will he come down on?
Frank Lowenstein, Benjamin Netanyahu.
Oh, which side will the genocidal fascists come down on? We'll see.
Under what scenario does he agree to a truce that would effectively imperil his own political survival?
Yeah, that's really the question from the United States perspective: is what can we do with our actions?
Yeah, right. With that too, it's like, yeah, what side will Netanyahu come down on when he fucking, like, he's gonna have the same opinions he's always had. He's gonna, flip it off at fucking Biden, and be like, I don't give a shit, because he probably knows at the end of the day, like I fucking already figured out here, well, or can guess anyway, conjecture. But this is probably just a face-saving move from the U.S. We're stopping one singular shipment. We literally specified that it's one shipment being stopped. So that means it's jack shit. Netanyahu's gonna see that, he's gonna get that and be like, okay, this is like a save face type move. The U.S. doesn't really stand behind stopping aid to us. They're just gonna do it once and pretend they've made a stance. Yeah. Because we've set no red lines elsewhere, and it's just Israel is like a rabid dog that is just off the leash.
To drive him to that decision, because there's no question he's shown repeatedly.
Or just like a fucking feral dog.
Extremist coalition and President Biden, he'll choose his extremist.
Rabid might be a bit much.
Coalition every time. We negotiated extensively with Netanyahu in 2014 during the Gaza war with Hamas back then. And the challenge with Netanyahu is that he'll say he wants to do an agreement, but then he'll just kill it by nickel and diming every single element of the negotiation. So I think what we're trying to get him to do is to see the bigger picture here, which is that this is not about all the little words in the document. It's about stopping the fighting, getting the hostages out, and having an opportunity to reset. And I think that's exactly what he's most concerned about. If there's actually a ceasefire, then the
No.
momentum will build to end the war in one way.
No, when has... Maybe I zoned out and he's talking about someone else who does...
Bye.
Who does care. I had to pause because like my partner just walked in with his phone on like a business call. But maybe maybe I tuned out here for a second mentally, and he's referring to someone who does actually care about the hostages, like the protesters protesting against Netanyahu, and protesting for a ceasefire now, like at the college campuses across the country. But did he just say Netanyahu cares about getting the hostages back? No. And even Israelis know that. There are currently protests going on against Netanyahu, specifically for not caring about taking back the Israeli hostages, and for the fact that he's been indiscriminately bombing Gaza and it's been killing hostages. And people are like, wait, what the fuck? My family isn't, my relative isn't back yet, and you're fucking bombing the country to the ground. What are you doing?
Face elections and probably go to jail from his corruption trial. So he's in a very difficult spot.
And Frank Lowenstein, harking back to those days of 2014, is Benjamin Netanyahu a hardliner who will never negotiate?
Well, he's a hardliner in the sense that he's extremely difficult to negotiate with. He will fight you over every single comma in that entire document, and he'll make every last tiny little provision seem as if it's a life or death situation for the Israelis. And the problem with that is that it's because his ultimate goal is probably to kill these ceasefire negotiations. So it's very difficult for us to put public pressure on him to accept changes in a document that he's characterizing publicly as being something very different than they are. And that's why I think you've seen the weapons conditioning and Blinken certification be stalled, because I think we're trying to send the message to the Israelis that, hey, we're not screwing around on this.
Yeah, but is this, like I already said, is this even a fucking message? Because this does not send a message that we're not screwing around on this, because there's been no fucking red line for Israel prior. Why would this matter now? Especially when you preemptively state, we're doing it once. We're going to give you a slap on the wrist once, and then, maybe we'll do it again in the future if you continue your genocide. Yeah, I'm sure that'll work, stopping a single shipment of fucking bombs. But then the next one, you're already preemptively saying you're going to allow, so they know, there's no point to this current, ceasage of bombs. They know that, sure, today no more bombs are coming, but tomorrow will come, and tomorrow we're fine with giving them more bombs, regardless of what they do. So it's not setting a red line at all. It's just saving face for the U.S. government, or attempting to.
To give a complete picture on all of this, those Israeli tanks that moved in Tuesday morning, since then there's been no aid going into the Gaza Strip. The Israeli government says it's reopened the Keret Shalom crossing in the south of the country. However, the UN says there's no one to get the aid because Palestinians on the other side have fled.
It is true that the
I hate my brain sometimes. Right now, I can't help but imagining like a Jewish carrot that's like really peaceful, because Keret Shalom. Anyway, moving on. I digress.
The border crossing that Israel has now occupied leads to Egypt. That used to be open. It's no longer open. But Kerem Shalom is open. Areas in the north of the...
If you have a really visual mind, maybe that description got you too. But for me, something about that image just elicited, I don't even know, but just a sense of like light. Light in the darkness of this subject.
Gaza Strip, that is the Israeli side of the north of the Gaza Strip, is open. Aid is going in. The problem is delivery. You know, how do you ensure that it gets to people? How do you ensure it gets to people who have?
It would help ensure it getting to people if Israel would stop pogroms of fucking Zionists from, you know, literally stopping the aid. Like, I mean, then maybe the aid would get through. Hot take. You know, if the Israeli authorities use their authority for anything other than fascism and, you know, bashing on Palestinians and creating an ethno state and separating the, you know, the like local born Arab Jews from their populace by creating the label of Mizrahi Jew as a way to, you know, separate them and begin justifying creating an ethno, or, you know, including them in the ethno state that they're creating, because it's fine if they're Jewish, because, you know, it is an ethno state.
Fled from Rafah
Fun
under
fact.
Israeli instructions to do so are now in tents further along Al Mawasi, closer to the coast. How do you ensure they get the aid if the same people in Rafah, the UN, other deliverers are worried? And how do you ensure that Hamas doesn't take the aid, as they have done previously during these past few months, and simply sell it back to Palestinians in the markets? So there's lots of questions that a ceasefire would help answer and change. And I think that's why we're seeing this year.
Honestly, even if Hamas is doing that, I'm sorry, if we were doing that, we'd be calling it fucking capitalism. Like, like, straight up.
US pressure, and that's why it's time.
Like, I guess what I'm getting at there is, like, perspective matters. And maybe it's not quite like that, you know? Maybe it's like, you know, maybe Hamas is ensuring the security of the food and then taking payment in the form of, you know, charging for the service. Like, it actually straight up could be fine. Like, we're not fucking on the ground here, and that's fucking someone else's reporting of other people's perspective. Like, it's like a game of fucking telephone.
Going to be crunch time, I think, for Benjamin Netanyahu.
And perspective is always important with shit like that, because shit can easily get blown out of proportion when it comes to, like, you know what, anything
And
with, like, the media or whatever, or society. I don't know how to put it, but
I honestly could not tell you which way he will jump. It is interesting that he opened Kerem Shalom. He did that after a conversation with President Biden. He said it would open yesterday. That didn't happen. It has opened today. Perhaps that's a result of the actions that we've seen taken, and the very public words of Lloyd Austin.
All right, many thanks. Here is Mockler.
Okay, side note. Are they only showing footage of Israel? Or this is what, okay. I did say earlier, France 24, they go like one of two ways. And that seems like a way that they're maybe sucking Israel off a little bit here.
In Jerusalem, Frank Lowenstein for being with us from the U.S. For that.
But at the same time, they are still, like, they've been largely more critical than the U.S. media has. Like, the U.S. media just kind of, like, caught wind that, you know, it's actually genocide, and just started, like, picking the shit up. But France 24 has been kind of on this shit for, like, the last, like, couple months now. Just at the start, they definitely were kind of wishy-washy, you know, they flip-flop between, you know, sucking off Israel or being like, this is a genocide, please give us coverage, because this is probably getting us a lot of coverage, or a lot of views, rather.
That we'll continue, of course, to monitor this story.
All right. So that's that. Silver lining, the U.S. did something sort of good, but also not really. At the end of the day, it doesn't fucking matter. Moving on. I'm now gonna move on to gaming. Switch screens here. Close this. Oh, my mic is actually not perfect. Some of my quiet shit is not getting picked up. I've got to remember to stay within range here, which is difficult because it's a matter of balancing where I am on camera in the frame